What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. Today when I talk to you about SoundHound, I want to go over some of the current data points, break it down what's moving it, and go over everything else that you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So SoundHound is down 6.21%, 937 the low, 1015 the high. So this market, or what they now call it, the kangaroo market, is absolutely mind-blowing. It's pretty much the market's bipolar, because 1 second you are kind of looking like you're going to recover and then it just smacks it down. So ultimately today you did have the market somewhat panicking, and that's because of what came out associated to Alibaba and the whole DeepSeek kind of matching there. And so obviously a lot of fear. You had Marvel earnings really pushing the market down, and then you had this data that did come out, which was fairly negative. But once again, we're kind of at that stage where if you're having negative data, it's justifying of a rate cut, which other Fed speakers actually did state. So challenger job cuts was very high. So actual 172,000 versus a forecast of 56. And then we had the exports imports, initial jobless claims a lot lower than the forecast. So regardless, a lot of people said that for the April meeting, you might actually see a rate cut. So obviously the market loves that. So ultimately that's what started to kind of recover the broader market. And then now you're starting to have World War III type of comments being stated from Russia. So it's a very interesting scenario of everything that's playing out. Obviously, if none of that comes to fruition, then this is a buy the dip moment, and people will be looking back to what has happened over this last week as a screaming time to buy. But it's right now it looks like it is in full-on crap mode. Even the fear and greed index is extremely low. So right now it is sitting at 18, and it hasn't been this low for a very long time. So again, it's definitely it breaking below the 125-day moving average is not always the greatest. But there was news that did come out associated to SoundHound, and it was this right here. So SoundHound AI to participate in March investor conference. So they are participating in this right here. So the Cantor Global Tech Conference is going to be held in New York. It's going to be live streamed through SoundHound's website on March the 11th, 8:20 a.m. So Pacific, of course. So I think, yeah, that's going to be a good thing. Don't anticipate any new information. Probably it'll just be more of a reiteration of what has stated from their earnings and what has happened recently. From now until then, you never know. They could put out some other news, some partnerships. I've seen some comments in previous videos that they are working on things, just it's more speculative, so nothing official yet. But I think even from the Q4 earnings, we know that there is stuff happening behind the scenes. That's kind of the key takeaway from everything. So hopefully this should drive some demand ultimately. But so mark your calendars. If necessary, I can always live stream that if you guys would prefer, and then I can go over the Cole's notes of it, good, bad, and the ugly and everything. But as of right now, shorts are returning 238,000 shares. So this is why I like to analyze this type of information, because by shorts returning, it does show that today's downtrend isn't that justified, maybe overdone. So that's how I see things, of course. But 29.27% of the free float is being shorted. Works out to be 103.3 million shares overall are being shorted. Utilization is 86.41. And then short score, so the higher the number, the higher the likelihood of a squeeze happening, is sitting at 70.92. Looking at options, so the market's going to be closing in roughly like 2.5 hours, but 2.9 million in calls, 1.3 in puts. 51% of all the options being done today are bearish in nature. So a little bit more downside is anticipated. And based on this, you can kind of see just the overall volume is very low. So 4.1 right now in total premiums, probably settle around that 6. But in the last couple of trading days, we've had 10, 11, 13. So definitely something to keep in mind. That's a little bit better of a viewpoint. My apologies. As I'm sure you may or may not know, I'm not at home right now. This is why the audio sounds a little bit different and why I don't have my camera up. So if necessary, I can do a PM video as well if there is like some substantial changes. But as of right now, with the market closing in like 2.5 hours, I think this is pretty much a good example of what is happening in the broader market. But looking at the call options that are being purchased today, you see a consensus for it to be roughly around that $11 range. So optimism is starting to get dragged down a little bit, and then the bears are anticipating for it to be sub roughly around $9. These are all the transactions occurring on the secondary market above $100,000. So you did have some big money buying the SoundHound dip first thing, and then you have very little transactions pretty much after that, just selling. So 2 sells, the rest are buys, so a good ratio, but algorithmic trading is definitely in full force today, and a lot of that is very, very negative. But right now with at $9.47 trading between this S2 and this S3. So 603 is going to be the next strong support. 1002 is going to be the next strong target / resistance. No new analyst ratings. So the last one was done by H.C. Wainwright. I've already done a lot of videos kind of talking about that, so I'm not really going to bring that up exactly. One thing I do want to bring up actually on a side note is that there is 0 shares available to be shorted. So usually that does prompt potentially, and actually I guess speaking out loud, that could be why shorts are actually returning today, just to free up some room, because normally whenever you see 0 shares available, you typically have big money buying. So BlackRock, Vanguard, and other big names, because they like to buy stock that have no available or very limited available shares and lend them out. So you might see that happen possibly. We also have some big data coming out tomorrow, so unemployment numbers, so maybe the market's somewhat fearful about that. But on the actual chart itself, it is right now above, it looks like, or below the ALMA, so that it's sitting at 1002. And then you also do have that 200-day moving average, and that's sitting at $8.24. So you pretty much have that smack dab between that and that S3 that I did bring up based on the fib levels. Stochastic RSI, because of the recent price action, it actually caused it to be rather neutral. So it's not really oversold or anything. It's just in neutral territory. So that's some kind of key levels to really watch for, at least in the short term. So let me know your general thoughts on that. Do you think that this is going to result in anything of substance for that Cantor Global Tech Conference in New York? Like I said, maybe that's just me, but I don't see anything crazy coming from that. A week later, so March the 15th, 15th to the 18th, that is when their annual earnings is also due. And I think the stock price did get hit roughly around 5% because of that. So once they do submit their earnings and there is no skeletons exactly, then I could see a nice recovery in that aspect as well. So let me know your general thoughts on SoundHound. Are you buying the dip? Are you selling? Are you dabbling with options? What's your general kind of takeaway from all this? Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And then one final thing, pop over to my Patreon. I give buy signals on stocks, options, and crypto. Many of them have been absolutely on point and bangers. Despite this bloodbath that is happening today, many of the day trades I called out have been 100% accurate. So definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.